Hello there, glad you're with us. I'm Mick Cornett along with Kent Myers. We're here on The Verdict. We're here every week meeting interesting people and dealing with topical issues. And today we're going to kind of go back and look at a slice of history with a current day perspective.
Yes, we're going to talk about the life and saga, if you will, of Ada Lois Sipuel Fisher, the first black woman to be admitted to the University of Oklahoma College of Law, and all the trials and travails she went through to be admitted. And we're going to hear about her through the mouths and eyes of the people who played in a play about her that was presented around the state of Oklahoma called I'll Do It.
Should be an interesting show. It's all coming up today on The Verdict.
Natural gas is the gateway to a better world of energy. Instead of waiting, natural gas moves us forward now. Instead of finding ways to make dirty energy cleaner, natural gas simply is cleaner. We can use it to create our own energy, a wealth of new jobs, and keep more money here at home. Learn more at chk.com. Chesapeake, America's champion of natural gas.
Wilsey, Meyer, Eatman, Tate. We're accountants. We do taxes, business valuations, estate planning, and consulting. And we're right here in Oklahoma, working with the owners of small and medium-sized businesses. Steve Wilsey and Stuart Meyer have the resources and the experience. Wilsey, Meyer, Eatman, Tate in Oklahoma City and Tulsa.
There's no waiting at the St. Anthony ER.
No waiting.
Announcing the end of ER waiting at St. Anthony Hospital. Go to saintsok.com and reserve your time online.
Why didn't we think of that? And welcome back to the set of The Verdict. Mick Cornett with Kent Myers, and Kent's going to introduce today's guest.
Today we're really pleased to have as our guest two individuals. They're going to talk to us about a play called I'll Do It, based on the life of Ada Lois Sipuel Fisher. On my right is Professor Cheryl Wattley. Professor Wattley is Director of Clinical Education and Associate Professor of Law at the University of Oklahoma, did her undergraduate work at Smith College and graduated with honors there. Did her law work at Boston University, was an assistant United States attorney for a number of years, where she performed with recognized distinction. She was in private practice for approximately 28 years, doing principally criminal defense, employment, and civil rights matters. And we were lucky enough to grab her and bring her to the University of Oklahoma about 4 years ago, and she has been here since that time. Welcome, Professor.
Thank you.
Glad to have you.
Glad to be here.
On my left is a colleague of mine, Christopher Staine. Christopher did his undergraduate work at the University of Oklahoma with distinction. Did his law work at also the University of Oklahoma, where he was named one of the top students, if not the top student. He was the winner of the Amos T. Hall Scholarship. Amos T. Hall is a famous name in connection particularly with Ms. Fisher. He was the president of the Ada Lois Sipuel Fisher chapter of the Black Law Students Association. He is now, I'm very pleased to say, with me at Crone Dunleavy, and we do work together, and I twisted his arm and he was willing to come on the show. Chris, thank you.
Thank you.
We're sure glad to have you.
Great to have both of you. Professor Wattley, why does this story need to be told?
I think that one of the things that we tend to forget is that there was a time in this country where there was a significant division based upon race. And that's not to speak badly about or demonized the people who were in favor of segregation. That was their norm, that was their culture, that was their belief. We have since moved beyond that time period where now it seems foreign to us. But I think it's always good to revisit the fact that as a country we can move forward on issues. And our issues today may be different than segregation was in 1940, but we will at some point, 40 years from now, be talking about whatever those issues are today. And hopefully we will have moved forward. So perhaps if we can appreciate the progress that we've made and how far we have come since the 1940s, and Ada Lois had to fight this fight, we will have a sense of how we can approach some of our issues that might otherwise divide us.
How'd you get involved? Why this project?
When I came to OU Law School, we were on the 60th and coming up to the 60th anniversary of Ms. Sipuel's, the Supreme Court order directing that she be admitted to law school. That order was made in 1948, so as we approached 2008, I wanted to do something that would celebrate the anniversary of that Supreme Court order, and so consequently I wrote the play, which I was fortunate enough to have the black law students and other law students perform.
And are you a playwright by nature, or is this stepping out of your comfort zone a little bit?
I was so out of my comfort zone. In fact, the students will tell you, and friends of mine, I have friends who were in theater at Smith undergraduate, which has a very strong theater department, but they wouldn't even let me be stagehand on that. So when I started putting this together, it was one thing, and then when it came time to actually stage it and say, wait a minute, you can't just all just stand there, we have to get some movement, we have to get some variety, and I was so anxious and so nervous, and I think in a way it was good for the students to see one of their professors totally outside of her comfort level, because I was a nervous wreck.
Let's back up just a minute and briefly tell our viewers the short version of the story about Ms. Fisher's struggles, what she went through, and what finally happened.
Okay, sir. A couple of important components to that, and that is that the NAACP was doing a national march against segregation in schools. And the Second World War had kind of intervened, and they were really looking for someone who could become the kind of the face of desegregation. And they were actively looking for plaintiffs, and she fit that bill. Ironically, Roscoe Dungy and Dr. Bullard first went and approached her brother Lemuel and asked him if he would be willing to be a test plaintiff in Oklahoma to challenge the segregation laws. He had just gotten out of the Army. He wanted to get on with his life, so he refused. But she was there, she heard the invitation, and she volunteered. She said, I've graduated from Langston, I want to be a lawyer, I will be the one to be the plaintiff.
Thus the title of the play.
Thus the title of the play, I'll Do It, because she stepped in and offered and volunteered to do it. The application, another interesting kind of backstory was that Dr. Cross was very involved in this. Roscoe Dungy and Dr. Cross had an ongoing correspondence. And Roscoe Dungy had told Dr. Cross in advance that they were bringing her down, that they were going to have her make an application. He said, of course, under the law, I have to deny her admission. But it was kind of a friendly, collegial denial, if you will, and he made it very clear that she was being denied on the basis of race. So it would be a good letter that could be presented to a court for the lawsuit. The litigation took 2 years. The Oklahoma Supreme Court twice ruled that she should be denied admission, but finally in June of 1949, she was allowed to enter the law school.
The U.S. Supreme Court got involved, did it not?
The U.S. Supreme Court got involved twice, and the Oklahoma Supreme Court. A lot of recognition goes to Dr. George McLaurin, who became the first African American to enter the University of Oklahoma. But Dr. McLaurin's admission was based upon the Supreme Court order that Ada Lois had gotten in her case. So the irony of her struggle, if you will, was others were able to enter the university and start getting education while she was still being denied admission, because a separate segregated law school had been created, the Langston Law School, for her. And rather than go to a segregated law school, she wasn't going to attend, and she was forcing the issue. But a number of African American students did get the opportunity to enroll at OU before she was even allowed to go to the law school.
Chris, the Langston Law School was at the state capitol in Oklahoma City?
Correct.
Big student body?
No.
How many students is that?
Just Ada.
Just one?
Yeah.
But she never enrolled. She refused to enroll.
Yeah.
So had none.
But it would just
But
be
the
for-
state set up what they said was separate but equal law school at the
Correct.
state capitol
Right.
building. under the guise of a Langston Law School, but she didn't participate in that.
Correct.
So once she was admitted, what did she face at the University of Oklahoma College of Law in the way of hurdles? How was she treated?
Well, very poorly. She had to deal with much criticism.
Well, how was she seated in class and that sort of thing?
There were specific rules that Dr. Cross had been required to implement by the state legislatures. So, for example, there had to be segregation even within the institution. So neither Ada Lois or Dr. McLaurin, anyone were allowed to actually be in the classroom. She had to go to the top of the steps, the back row, and they had actually roped off the back row of seats for her and draped a sign for colored, so that the way our play concludes is she's walking up the steps to this seat that is designated colored, and it's like the worst moment. What should have been a most kind of the pinnacle of her struggle, everybody's looking at her. You know, she's gone through riding on the back of the bus. She's gone through all the hate mail. She's gone through this. This should be the moment of achievement. But even that she doesn't get because she has to go to the colored seat.
Yeah, Chris, how'd this whole process affect you?
Well, it affected me greatly. This was an opportunity for me not only to learn about an important piece of University of Oklahoma College of Law history, but an important piece of Oklahoma history. This was an opportunity for me to learn about an individual who struggled and persevered in order to give me an opportunity to pursue a legal education at the University of Oklahoma. And this allowed me to obtain a greater appreciation for the education that I was receiving, because without Ms. Fisher, I would not have the opportunity to seek a legal education from the University of Oklahoma. So,
we're going to take our first break. The play is called I'll Do It. We'll have more on The Verdict right after this.
I remember walking into the academy and seeing the Highway Patrol core values, the professionalism, the courage, the bravery, integrity. And I realized that those are some of the same qualities that I was taught by my grandmother that the Chickasaw Nation valued in their people. We had received calls of heavy, heavy rain. I mean, it was the most unbelievable thing I've ever seen in my life. We had seen the white pickup truck with the two elderly people in it. There was no means of escape. And looking down at these people, you could see the terror in their eyes, and we knew we had to make a move, or these people would probably die. And I reached down and grabbed their arm to help pull them up. I remember thinking, these people are gonna live, this is gonna work out. I appreciate this citation, but that's what we do. That's what we're expected to do. I'm glad that I was able to carry on that tradition of bravery and courage under strife.
The oil and natural gas industry help provide a revenue that feeds our schools, providing a better education for not only my kids, but for children all over the state.
It will allow the schools to buy better equipment. We'll be able to hire qualified teachers, all around to have a better educational experience.
The future has never been brighter for our students here.
We should be very proud of the oil and gas industry in Oklahoma.
Welcome back to the set of The Verdict. It was over 60 years ago that Ada Lois Sipuel Fisher was at first denied entrance into the University of Oklahoma School of Law, but a famous court case got her into school eventually, and that story is now being told by a University of Oklahoma law professor. And Professor, I want to first of all thank you for coming on The Verdict, but tell us about you have this idea in your head about putting this together. How did you start writing a play when you were not a playwright by training or by nature?
So I started with the part that I was familiar with, and that was doing historical research. And the law school purchased a copy of the NAACP records, the correspondence between Thurgood Marshall and Amos Hall and Roscoe Dungy, letters that Ada Lois had written to Thurgood Marshall. And so I began by gathering together all the documents. I got the court pleadings. We were able to find the transcript of the trial where the state of Oklahoma tried to argue that the Langston Law School was indeed equal to the University of Oklahoma, and get the testimony of deans and professors of law schools from across the country that came to Norman in support of Ada Lois's attempts to enter the University of Oklahoma. So once I gathered all that material, the story just started to be told. And I wanted people to understand a couple of things. The question is whether or not we would have the personal courage to say, yes, I'll do it. At the time she agreed to be the plaintiff, there had been an earlier lawsuit by the NAACP representing Lloyd Gaines out of Missouri. The Supreme Court issued a ruling in his favor in May of 1939, but he mysteriously disappeared. And literally to this day, no one knows whether he was lynched and kidnapped, or did he, because of the pressure and stress, voluntarily leave the United States and emigrate and live somewhere on his own. But this was known to her at the time that the NAACP is looking for plaintiffs. Wow. And she's known, she knows about this. The last known lynching in Oklahoma was out of Chickasha, Henry Argo, who was a boy she knew. So she has this history. She understands the violence that can come with this. And so to have the personal courage to say, I'll do it, I want to take on this challenge, I think helped me put together a story. And it's a story that is of a woman who decided she was going to do this, but had great determination and great focus in accomplishing this goal.
We have a picture of the woman that we're speaking about. And what happened after this? What became of her legal career and her later life? And let's take a shot of the picture if we can.
She took the bar exam, passed the bar, which is interesting because out of 4 different lawsuits brought by the NAACP for integration of law schools, only 2 of the individuals actually graduated and became lawyers, and Ada Lois is one of them. She practiced for a while, but I would say that the bulk of her career was as a professor at Langston University.
Chris, you were an actor, a participant in the play. Why did you decide to get involved, and what part did you have?
The better question would be why not? I saw how much energy and time Professor Wattley had put into writing this play, and I knew that it would be big. And so I decided, why not participate and
what role did
take
you play?
A pretty substantial role. I played a Roscoe Dungy. So the president of the NAACP Oklahoma chapter, the individual who escorted Miss Fisher to meet with Dr. Cross and actually apply to the law school, the individual who wrote the letter to Thurgood Marshall to basically start the legal battle, tell him, okay, she's been denied, the legal battle begins now.
How many students were involved as actors in the play?
Oh,
I would say 15.
At least 15.
Each session. We've done 2 productions, and because they were different academic years, there were different groups of students. But the way we stage it takes about 15 students.
Yeah.
And one of the opportunities here is people are going to see the show and they're going to want to see it somewhere. Are there any performances in the works or down the line? What would you like to do?
Or on video or anything?
Well, no, but what we would like to do is if there's anyone who'd be interested, we certainly would try to have an opportunity to stage it again. It's one of those performances that I think that we can get students excited about, and we can put it together, and I think it's a great message, and it's one that I would like to see more and more people in Oklahoma be able to see the story. And part of what I derive from is she writes in her own autobiography that literally thousands of people have gone to school now as a result of her efforts and plaintiffs like her. But it's all about a person making an individual decision. And so she puts the challenge forth in her book for all of us to examine ourselves to see what decisions we make in whatever arenas we're acting in our lives. And I just think that's a good message.
What, you performed this in front of the Oklahoma Judicial Conference. First of all, tell our viewers who may not know, what is the Oklahoma Judicial Conference, and then tell us about how it was received.
Yeah. The Oklahoma Judicial Conference every year, the judges from across the state of Oklahoma, from the district court level to the Court of Appeals to the Supreme Court, gather together for their annual educational conference. And we were fortunate enough to be invited in October of 2008 to perform the play before the judges and justices of this state. And it was very well received. It was, I think that's one of the things that's very humbling about it, is every time we have performed it, the audience does respond warmly. One part that we did do differently in that play is there was an annual conference back in the 40s of the YMCA and YWCA, which was very supportive of Ada Lois's efforts to apply. Ben Blackstock, who used to be with the Oklahoma
Press Association.
Yes.
He's been a guest on this show.
All right. Was a student at OU at the time, and he and several other students drove to Chickasha for this YMCA conference that they were having, and he spoke before this packed audience on behalf, if you will, the white students at OU, and saying why Ada Lois should be admitted. So for our play, we had Mr. Blackstock come, and we kind of staged the people sitting behind him, and he delivered a version of the very same speech that he had given over 60 years ago. And that made it a very special presentation.
Well, he was a very special person. Talk about the reaction of the students in working through the rehearsals and the presentation of this, Chris. What kind of an impact did it have on you and on your fellow students?
The preparation that it took for?
Both.
Well, there's a lot of preparation involved, a lot of pressure to perform at the...
She's a tough director, is she?
I was so out of my comfort level that I think that I was perhaps over the top and needing them to do what they're capable and do well. It was
definitely a lot of pressure to live up to Professor Wattley's standards, but it brought us all together. And the reason why I think Professor Wattley was so demanding upon us was because of the importance of the message that we were trying to get across. And I think it impacted every one of us very deeply to learn about Ms. Fisher's story and why we now can be judged on merit as opposed to our race. And it touched us to be able to perform it in front of some of her family members, Oklahoma judges, and our fellow students, fellow colleagues at the law school. And everybody has received the play very favorably. There's always an emotional response. There's always a shocking response when we go through the play. But it is very fulfilling to be able to convey the message from the play and her struggle that she went through in order to end segregation at the law school.
Professor Wattley, are there other stories to be told? Do you have anything in the back of your mind that you're conjuring up for us?
Not that I can talk about right now.
Yeah, okay.
Well, let me hold this up. I don't know whether you can get a tight shot on that or not, but it's the autobiography. And you brought this with you. This was presented to you and the other cast members. Tell us about that.
Well, after the play...
it's called A Matter of Black and White.
Correct.
It's the autobiography of Ms. Fisher.
We've got about 30 seconds left.
After the play, Bruce Fisher presented each of us with this book, and it's signed by himself and Dean Coates. And we were all very moved by his kind gesture, and took it to heart that he felt the need to give us all a copy of her autobiography and a signed copy of her autobiography. And so we definitely appreciated his gesture.
Christopher Staine, Professor Wattley, thank you both for coming on The Verdict.
Yeah, thank you both.
And giving us a better understanding of this important part of Oklahoma history. Kent and I'll have a final word right after this.
All children deserve a life of hope and love, but sometimes they experience a life of pain, neglect, and abuse.
When that happens, each child deserves all the quality assistance and representation that can be offered in our legal system. For more information, call 23-CHILD.
Oklahoma Lawyers for Children, helping to bring hope and love back to the lives of abused children.
The good life comes naturally to Tulsa, where nature's beauty is matched with an eye for aesthetics. A legacy of neighborhoods graced with lawns and landscaping and handsome homes. A place that seems to have patented an ideal lifestyle. Bank First is loyal to the quality of life Tulsa assures its citizens, to the priority placed on education, culture, and growth. Loyal to builders who transform raw land into residential charm. Developers who see opportunity and add vitality to Tulsa's economy. Bank First serves both enterprise and private lives that need a loyal partner. It's how we help nurture this city's very good life. Bank First. Loyal to Oklahoma. Loyal to you.
Over time, owning your home has proved to be a good decision. And while lately the economy has presented challenges, it's also helped us focus on what matters most: family, friendship, community, and finding a home that's right for you. No one has more experience and expertise to help you than an agent who is a realtor. We're prepared to show you options, answer your questions, and guide you home. Every market's different. Call a realtor today.
The Journal-Record is pleased to be a sponsor of The Verdict. The Journal-Record, since 1903, the best source of Oklahoma business news and legal information. And for almost 30 years, Oklahoma political, government, and business leaders have turned to the McCarville Report for accurate, reliable, inside information. Visit the McCarville Report online.
Welcome back to the set of The Verdict. Mick Cornett and Kent Myers wrapping up a show in which we heard about a play called I'll Do It.
Well, it's obviously a powerful play. It has a great story. It ends happily, pretty much, but a lot of agony going on in between. And it talks about the desegregation of the University of Oklahoma College of Law in spite of a couple of Oklahoma Supreme Court opinions to the contrary. Ms. Fisher did make it into the College of Law, did graduate, did pass the bar, did practice law, and then was a professor at Langston University for many years. We appreciate Chris Staine and Professor Wattley telling us about it.
Professor Wattley can be contacted through the University of Oklahoma's College of Law's website. That address is on the screen. And don't forget about our website, theverdict.tv. That's going to do it for this week's show. For Kent Myers, I'm Mick Cornett. We'll see you next week.
The preceding program was produced exclusively for the Cox Channel.